Not take any advice or products offered here today as being endorsed by AFSA. You should make financial decisions based on careful consideration and research of this and other information provided on retirement planning. So there we are. I've done the disclaimer. Take good notes, ask questions during the Q&A, and here's the part that you'll love. After the Q&A, there's going to be a happy hour with wine and snacks, and our presenters have agreed to stay and over a glass of wine to continue to answer your questions. So thank you all for being here, and with that, I will introduce the first speaker, G.B. Bose of Washington, Retirement Planning Specialist, and he'll be followed by Patrick Beagle of Wealth Trust. Please save your questions for the end for Q&A, and now get ready to take notes. Welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. Can you hear me in the back? Is it too loud?
Yes.
It's too loud.
Too loud?
Alan? Need someone else. Is that good? Okay. Well, the format, I'm going to stand if that's okay. I can see everybody. Okay. So since the format is that I speak for about 35 minutes, and Mr. Beagle speaks for 35 minutes, as Ambassador Stevenson indicated, we're going to try and pack in as much as we can in the 35 minutes. And then we've got 40 minutes of Q&A when you can fire away anything you want. Okay? So 35 minutes is a short time. People like us love to talk. And the ideal format would be a whole day. Okay? So I'll try to condense a whole day. So what I've done is pick a couple of topics that are of particular interest to people, so that it's a little interesting and not the laundry list. Okay, so the two things that are most important to people, in my opinion, that stand out, and that don't get enough attention, are tax planning and, a little better understanding of TSP. How does TSP factor in the making of a happy retirement from a financial standpoint? So, let me jump into this and I'll come back and try and tie it all together. This busy slide that you see is in a handout. I know you cannot read it from the back. It's too small. So in the package that we have, and I'll come back to the package later on, in the package that we have given you from Washington Retirement Planning Specialist, if you pull out syllabus part 2 and go to page 35, same as the page number at the top right corner. This is the slide. I was privileged, before I start, thank you very much, AFSA, for inviting us. It's a privilege. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Ambassador. Todd still here? Okay. Todd, thank you very much. Right here. It's a real honor. And, we have had the privilege of also working with a lot of you, probably a dozen ambassadors that work with us, so we're very privileged, and I'm delighted to be here. So, about a year or so back, I had the privilege of being invited by OPM to shed some light on what they could do to make TSP better, the Thrift Savings Plan. And here's their problem. The then Director of Retirement Services for OPM told me that she was very depressed every January. And I said, how so? Well, she said she has to return over $1 billion back to the U.S. Treasury every January. So I said, what's the reason? She said it's because every year the federal government sets aside several $billions to be ready to provide for the 5% matching that FERS employees qualify for if they put in at least 5%. Unfortunately, a vast number of people in the federal government were failing to do so. If you don't put in your 5%, you don't get the matching 5%. And if that's not used up by the end of the year, it has to go back to the Treasury. And so they were at a loss, and there were other issues as well. Right now, the thrift savings plan is in excess of about $430 billion, give or take. Over $100 billion of that is in the G fund. Now, is that a crime? I don't think so. I'm sure many of you have your money in the G fund because you're not comfortable with the way the market has been going up and down. But it's not a solution for the long term. As an example, well, let's leave the example for the question and answer. So, this was one of my slides for that OPM presentation. I thought I would share it with you. Okay? As far as we are concerned, we did some digging into TSP and the history of TSP and how it's flown, etc. And from an academic standpoint, we saw two issues with TSP. One of underfunding and the other of underallocation. So I wanted to give you a sense of what does underfunding mean and what does underallocation mean. Okay, I think it's best illustrated. What I thought we would do is take a hypothetical State Department employee who started, let's say, in 1982 and put in his or her 30 years of service until the end of 2012. Okay, and let's make some modest assumptions. Let's say this person put away about 8.1%. Now I backed into that to my calculations. Let's say this person was making $50,000 a year in salary to start with. And they put in religiously 8.1% every year. And let's say they left it all in the G fund. Okay? At the end of 2012, this person would have accumulated about $600,000 in the TSP, doing nothing, absolutely nothing. Why are we talking about this? It's because of the example I gave you. You know, the director of OPM, Retirement Services, is concerned. People are not even putting in 5%, and they're returning money to the Treasury. It's not a good thing. There's absolutely no excuse to not take that free money, 5% free money. Because if you put 5, and the government gives you 5, and you get a measly 2% raise, that's still 12% of your salary put away. And that's the result. Now, let me talk about what underallocation means. Because people are so uncomfortable with managing their own money in TSP, many of you tend to leave your money in the G fund. Because what are you thinking? I at least don't want to lose. But if you think about it, you are losing. Because if you look over the last 100 years in the United States, inflation has averaged 3%. Don't look at the Federal Reserve's CPI index. Why? Because that does not include food and energy. Do we all eat every day? Fast forward to October 19, 1987. Black Monday. What happened? The biggest one-day drop in the history of the stock market. Fast forward to 1990. The Gulf War starts. 1991, we have a mild recession in the United States. 92, 93, the federal government steps in to clean up the savings and loans mess. Every bank, savings and loans bank in the country is tottering. So what does the government do? Opens Resolution Trust Corporation. You remember, RTC, one of the biggest events for exchange of wealth from one set of hands to another set of hands in the United States. Okay, things were given away for pennies on the dollar. Then we have a nice tulip bulb-like mania in the United States called the dot-com bubble, which eventually burst in March of 2000. Okay, and NASDAQ dropped 75%. Now, don't forget our trooper here. Our trooper is continuing to put 8.1% every paycheck. Okay? So this is all happening in real time. And then, 2001, we get attacked by the terrorists. 9/11 happens. Okay? We go into a recession straight away through 2003. And then people get disgusted with the stock market and they start flipping homes, buying and selling residential property. So what do? We create a housing bubble which eventually bursts in 2006. Millions of Americans lose their homes. And then, end of 2007, the dark clouds are gathering and we get the biggest recession post-World War II. And the second worst in the nation's history, the Great Recession. 2011, we have a very sharp up and down. And then finally our trooper arrives. 30 years, I am done, I'm leaving the federal government with full benefits. I'm ready to retire. These numbers would have held true in spite of all of these events happening from 1982 to 2012. So, is the TSP a good vehicle? This is a no-brainer. Okay? It does help you. Can you improve upon it? Absolutely. That's why we exist. You come to us after you're done, and then we take care of you. So, that's a story for a different day. But the fact is, the TSP does work. You have to stop looking at it every lunchtime. And then it'll work. Okay? All right. Now, here are some few things about TSP. Since, by show of hands, how many of you are CSRs, the old civil service system? Oh, FSRDS or CSRs? Huh? No, I'm talking about the old system.
Yeah.
The old system, how many? Quite a few. Okay. And the rest, I'm assuming, are all FSPS? Okay. No, any FERS? A few FERS. Okay. So, the majority are FERS. So, here's what you have to keep in mind, that if you want to contribute into the TSP, everybody can put in 18,000. If you're over 50, you can add an additional 6,000. And you get a 5% matching from the federal government. It doesn't matter how you direct this 24,000 or 18,000. Doesn't matter. You can put it all, if you choose to, in the Roth TSP. Okay, why is that beneficial? Here's why. If you put it all in the traditional, your matching 5% always goes into the traditional TSP. Always. You don't have a say in that. It's a gift. Okay? But the 6%, the 6,000 and the 24 and the 18,000 that you are contributing can go in any quantity, either into the Roth or the traditional TSP, or a combination thereof. Okay, what are the consequences? Let's say you have a $100,000 salary. If you put 24,000 into the Roth TSP, you do not get a tax deferral. Okay, your tax will, if you're in the 30% bracket, then you pay an additional 30% tax on that 24,000. That would be $7,200. Okay. On the other hand, if you put it into the traditional TSP, you get to pay taxes only on 100 minus 24, that's $76,000, and you get a little tax relief now. The question is that the best thing to do? The answer is, it depends. If you can afford it, it is the best deal, bar none, that the US government has ever offered to its citizens. Okay? I'm going to give you the reasons. I'm going to give you the math as well. Absolutely the best deal ever in the history of the nation. Because what's better than tax-free? Can anyone give me anything that's better than tax-free?
Tax deferred.
Absolutely not. Just the opposite. I'll tell you how bad that is. Now, I'll probably get dragged out of here for saying all this and shot. But I'm going to tell you. Because I've got to tell you how a financial planner thinks. Okay? The time to recoup the additional taxes that you pay up front is going to be between 6 to 8 years. After that, all of the money that you have deferred into the Roth is going to be tax-free in perpetuity. In perpetuity. Okay? Now, why is that important? I'm going to come to that. So, since, how much time do I have? 15 minutes. Perfect. Perfect. So, Rosetta, do you want to please switch to the tax law thing? Because I want to focus on tax planning. Here's something. While Rosetta is switching the slides, every one of you is going to have a good life in retirement from a financial standpoint, as far as being able to eat, have a roof, and be comfortable. What's going to be your biggest problem, more than managing your money, is tax planning. This is really ignored, and people don't quite understand how the tax laws work. Okay? By a show of hands, how many of you have seen the U.S. tax code? How many pages? 74,600 and counting. Okay? When was this first started? 1913. The birthday of the IRS. 1913. How long was the 1040? 3 pages, including the instructions. Okay? So we have come a long way, baby. Okay? That's how it is. It's 74,600, and the biggest thing on the agenda of the new president, whoever that is going to be tax reform. Okay? It has to be. Because we've got a national debt that's at $18.5 trillion and climbing. We love to, analyze this. I won't get into this, maybe during Q&A. Just bring up a question about the national debt, and I'll give you my perspective on that. But let's get back to this, since we only have 10 to 15 minutes. This is what made everything possible. And one confusion that most people have is that the Roth TSP has nothing to do with your Roth IRA. They're two separate things. And you can still do Roth IRAs and IRAs even if you do your Roth TSP. Okay? You can max out. So let's say if you have a $100,000 salary and you're putting in $24,000 and you get, let's say, $5,000 matching, $29,000. You can still do, if you're over 50, an additional $6,500. If you're married, $13,000 additional contributions. And I'm going to now introduce why that's possible and the consequences of that. Big consequences. So here's what happened. TIPRA 2006 stands for Tax Increase Prevention and Reconciliation Act of 2006. Sounds like the federal government. This was done during President George Bush's term. Summer of 2006, TIPRA 2006 was passed. An innocuous tax law which you guys didn't care about. It became effective during President Obama's first term, January 1st, 2010. That's when it became effective. What is it? Well, it allowed people making more than $100,000 adjusted gross income to be able to convert their tax-deferred money to tax-free money as long as they were prepared to pay the taxes up front. Okay? Before that, even if you wanted to, you couldn't. Now, why is this significant? Here's why. By allowing that, you can now make $1 million a year. Even Hillary Clinton can do it if she wants to. All she has to do is pay the taxes. She's getting a lot of fees. That's okay. After 2010, you're allowed to do it. Okay, so how does this affect you? Well, here's what happens. Think of all of your money that you have to be in 3 distinct buckets. Bucket number 1, your taxable bucket. You've got to pay taxes on that every year, whether it's salary, pension, Social Security, doesn't matter. You pay taxes on that. Bucket number 2, your tax deferred bucket. TSP, in the traditional TSP, 401ks, IRAs, whenever you have gotten a tax deferral, that's where it's accumulating, and it's very substantial for most people. Bucket number 3 is the tax-free bucket, which is once you get your Roth IRA or your Roth TSP, once you get your money into the Roth buckets, you never ever pay taxes. And I'm going to show you now why that's so important. Okay? Here's the typical scenario for me. At least 3 or 4 times every week. Someone in their 60s who has retired will come to see me and say, I'm really happy, I've got a nice pension, and I don't know if I should start Social Security, maybe I should wait until full retirement age, which is 66 or 67, but I've got a good cash flow and I can get money from elsewhere. And by the way, I've got a $900,000 TSP, and it's tax deferred, it's in bucket number 2. I don't know to touch it for the next 8 years. Let's say this person is 62. At 70 and a half, I don't have a choice. I must take money out. Because of what? Required minimum distribution. Don't have a choice. So my strategy is that I'm going to live comfortably, go around the world, have fun, and then when I get to 70 and a half, I'll take the least amount of money out and just pay taxes on that. There's nothing I can do. That's the law. So here's how it goes every time. I tell them, how about converting this to a Roth? And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, let's say you convert $100,000. And they say, well, I'm in the 30% tax bracket, state and federal combined. So what's that going to cost me? I said, $30,000. You got to be kidding. $100,000? You want me to pay $30,000 in taxes when I don't need to? That doesn't make any sense. Incidentally, 99.9% of the people in this country do this. They just wait until 70 and a half, and that's one of the best laid schemes of the IRS to trap you, really trap you. Here's how. Listen to me. This is how it works. If you convert 100,000, just indulge me for a few minutes. You now have paid 30,000 from your pocket, and you're really upset. Let's say this 100,000 is sitting on the Roth now, and you make what? 5% a year. Okay? So how long will it take for you to recoup that 30,000? 6 years, right? 5,000 a year. Because on the 100,000, if you make 5%, that's 5,000 and it's totally tax-free. Okay? So, I'm sorry? No, you must not ever, ever touch money from the retirement, because that would defeat the purpose of this exercise. You have to find it somewhere else. If you don't have it, then you don't do it. Wouldn't make sense for you because you have cash flow issues. This is for people, and there are many people that can do this. And there are some elegant strategies to be able to do this without upsetting your lifestyle. That's prime. You must be happy every morning. Otherwise, it's no good. You don't want to be unhappy. Okay? So let's say you do this, and in 6 years they're recouped. Now that 100,000 plus every penny it makes is tax-free in perpetuity, and that 100,000 will not be included in the calculations for required minimum distribution at age 70 and a half. So theoretically, if you can do this exercise, and it doesn't, unlike other tax laws, it doesn't have to stop at age 70. You can continue to convert beyond age 70, and if you can theoretically convert everything to Roth and pay the taxes up front, you will never pay taxes on your retirement money. Now let's contrast this with what most people are doing. Okay? They say, well, I don't need to pay taxes now. I'm going to wait until 70 and a half. And then I'm going to pay my little bit. And then let's say I live for 20 years, 25 years. Whatever I've not used goes to my beneficiaries. They use it for 30, 40 years, and if there's anything left, that goes to their children. And then they might use it for another 30, 40 years, if there's anything left. So, you have two choices. Either you take your lumps up front and get cleaned up in 6 years, or 8 years, or you pay taxes for 70 to 80 years. This is more important than what the market did. Because if I can save you 30% for 60, 70 years. Okay? Would that make more impact on your wealth, even if you're conservatively managed? And manage the rest of your money very conservatively so that you don't lose. The taxes will kill us. And you can take this to the bank. We cannot get rid of the national debt without raising taxes. That has to happen. Okay? And who's going to pay for it? Us. The citizens. We will pay for it. Otherwise, there are huge ramifications. Okay? Social programs will have to be tinkered with a little bit, but taxes will have to go up. So, that's the big message is tax planning is more important than asset management. Asset management is important. I gave you a sense of what you can do with TSP. What are the rules around TSP? Tax planning, more important. What I would like to, how much time do I have, Todd?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, perfect. So, let me do this. I'm going to touch on one other subject, Social Security. This is also on people's mind. The CSRS folks that are in the room, during Q&A, bring up the issue of windfall, of course, but voluntary contribution plan. Okay? The CSRS and FSRDS folks, are you familiar with the voluntary contribution plan?
Yes, and it's not open to foreign service.
Oh,
It's
I see.
only
FSRDS doesn't get it, that's right. But CSRS does. CSRS and CSRS offset, they both get it. All right, we can take that on the side. But if anybody is interested in following up, we got folks in the back of the room. You can sign up for a consultation. We'll be happy to create an analysis that will tell you whether Roth conversions make sense for you or not, and what are some of the options with your TSP. Okay, it's optional, it's free. We don't charge for it, but there'll be, and there's some material in the package as well. You can look it up when you go home. But you can also sign up for a complimentary consultation. Doesn't cost you anything. But this is the third thing that's also equally important. Because remember, your retirement is 3-tiered for those who are FSBS or FERS, your pension, your Social Security, and then your personal savings. And TSP is the biggest component of your personal savings. That's how it is. Okay? And if you can then, if you have paid off your home or had some additional non-retirement assets, perfect. But those are the, so oftentimes the question comes up is, when should I take my Social Security? What you should know is that if you were born 1943 or later, and if you become eligible for Social Security at age 62, if you can help it, please don't take it. Okay? It's not good for you, because you get this permanent haircut that you live with for the rest of your life. Unless the doctor says that you're only going to live for 2 more years, or you're in dire cash flow need, by all means take it. If not, try to get funds from somewhere else and wait at least until full retirement age for Social Security so that you don't get a haircut. Very important. And conversely, if you wait, you do get a raise until age 70, depending on when you were born. Taxable. Okay? So this is not free. But it does increase your gross quite substantially if you get 3 years of raise, let's say, or 4 years of raise. That's 8 times 4, 32%. So for every $1,000 that you've earned for your Social Security contributions, the 6.2% that you're contributing from every paycheck, you would get $1,320. It's very substantial. And this has a lot of planning implications, depending on how you're doing from a cash flow standpoint. We'd be happy to give you some insights into that as well. Okay, the next slide. I think I should be wrapping up now, right? Okay. A couple of slides. This is very, very interesting. If you're married, including same-sex marriage, that's not legal, if there's a wide discrepancy between the two spouses' Social Security income, they're both full retirement age. The one, let's say one makes 40,000, the other makes 10,000. The one that makes 10,000 can file and suspend their own and take 50% of their spouses until age 70. And at age 70, they can test again to see if their own, which is growing at 8% a year, has exceeded 50% of their spouses. If that's the case, they can switch. Okay? Here's an abuse of this law. You gotta have some fun. Let's assume that this $40,000 person, the one that gets 40,000 Social Security, married 5 people, 10 years each, and then let them go. And these 5 people never worked a day in their life, and they never remarried. Each one of these 5 people, when they reach full retirement age, is entitled to what? Half of their $40,000 spouse's Social Security for life, adjusted for cost of living every year. Okay? So I think Social Security needs some fixing, to put it mildly. All right? And then, of course, if there's a 6th spouse for this $40,000 person, and that person stays married to this person when this person finally dies, even though this person may not have worked ever, this person will get $40,000 a year for the rest of their life. You can swap. Okay? I'm going to stop at that. I thought, I should at least hit the very important topics of retirement planning, and I'm going to let Patrick take over. We'll be here after Patrick finishes, and then we will engage in Q&A. Thank you very much.